Caroline Dowd-Higgins, host of Your Working Life, my podcast series featuring thought leaders in the career and personal growth arena with wisdom to help you thrive. Now, this podcast provides you with tools, inspiration, and resources so you can enjoy your career and love your life. And today, I'm delighted to welcome my very special guest to the show, Greg Bustin. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Caroline. Great to be here.
Oh, I'm delighted to talk about your brand new book, but let me tell our global listening audience all about you. Greg Bustin isn't afraid to ask the questions no one else wants to ask. Counseling a diverse roster of admired and innovative companies, Greg illuminates what differentiates high-performing organizations from others. Now, his real-world experience and fresh insight have inspired 4 respected books on leadership, including my favorite new book, Accountability, the Key to Driving a High-Performance Culture, lauded by Soundview as the best business book for leaders who want to harness the secret weapon that drives success. So, Greg, you are my kind of guy. Let's talk right off the bat about accountability and why that's so important.
Well, it's important because every business is a people business, and what makes accountability so hard is that we're dealing with people. And it's this whole idea of accountability is really a mindset that leaders bring. So what type of performance are you willing to tolerate? Are you wanting to set high standards and shoot for the stars? Are you willing to let underperformers get away with it? It's all in the mind of the leader.
You know, it's interesting. We are in a fascinating time in our workplace culture that failure is very sexy, talking about failing forward, learning from our mistakes, and I'm in full agreement. However, I don't think that gets people off the hook in being accountable. Any thoughts there?
Well, you're right. What needs to happen is really accountability. I mean, it takes its words from accounting, right? It's a contract. And so it's not about letting people off the hood. It's about the hook. It's about setting expectations and setting that contract up front. And both parties can have a say in that. But once the contract is set, that's the contract. And if you deliver, then you earn trust. And if you don't deliver, you're not accountable and you lose trust.
Exactly. So, Greg, we have a multi-generational audience from all over the globe. It's quite diverse. So I know a lot of leaders at a variety of levels are saying, okay, I get it, but how do I maintain or create a culture of accountability? How do you get them started?
Well, I think this whole idea is that accountability really ought to be coaching and not criticism. And so I think the difference between a high-performing team, if you think about your own experience on a high-performing team, one of the most powerful forms of accountability is peer-to-peer accountability, provided you've got the right peers. And the opposite of that is to say, hey, I've got to have the courage, to call somebody out if they're not meeting the expectations that we set together. And I think that when you trust somebody, when you know that they're coming at it from a place of caring rather than criticism, then you're more inclined to accept that as helpful feedback. But it's got to be there. I think it's really how you set the expectations and the level of respect that is enjoyed or not enjoyed on a team or in a relationship.
I fully agree, and I love this from your book. You say accountability is a support system for winners. In high-performing organizations, accountability is not just top-down. So elaborate for me on that, because we've all been in scenarios where accountability is the single greatest obstacle facing so many leaders.
Well, it's an obstacle when you don't talk about the stuff that really needs to be talked about. And I think that the support system embraces this idea that we are going to talk about the meaty issues, the things that we really need to fix. And I think that this notion of a support system is that people really like boundaries. And if you think about that initially, your first impression might be, oh, you're going to box me in. My view of that is you need boundaries to understand how you can be your best and how you can create within that framework. And so that you also know, hey, outside of these boundaries, that's off limits, that's a distraction, that's a mistake, that's not allowed. And I think that when you have those types of boundaries, it really is a very freeing experience for you to be even more creative and more accountable.
And I love that you talk about this customization, because as a fellow executive coach, I know everybody's different. Everybody has their own unique strength. So being your best is different for one leader than another. It's not a cookie cutter accountability philosophy.
Well, exactly right. And so what you have to do, I think what we all have to do, is we have an obligation to define what best means. We have an obligation to define, if we say, hey, we've got a core value in our organization of high achievement. We need to understand what high achievement looks like. We also need to understand how much failure are we willing to tolerate, right? Because I think that's what people want to know. They just want to know, tell me what you want me to do, tell me how I'm doing, tell me where the boundaries are, and let me use my skills to be the best that I can be. And I think that accountability is an opportunity to coach people into being their best. And how you customize that, back to your point, Caroline, really depends on how every organization or every team or every department defines success and mistakes and failure and that sort of thing.
Now, Greg, you have developed a great tool that you call your best and worst survey. Tell me more about that.
Well, I don't know that it's a tool, but what it is and we're taking votes now, and you can go to my website and vote. We are voting for the best and worst in accountability. And my view of this is that it's helpful for people to really understand role models, including what not to do. So when things were difficult, did that leader make a good choice, or did they take an easy path? I mean, an example of a good guy, one of the folks that's on our survey this year is Apple CEO Tim Cook, and what he did to stand up for privacy. You look at the very opposite of that, and you've got the whole Takata airbag problem, right? Millions of airbags. At what point did the company know that something should have been done, but was too busy chasing a profit or covering things up to address the real problem? So last year's loser was Volkswagen, right? That was a big no-no what right. They did, and last year's winner was the CEO of REI, for making the gutsy decision on the busiest sales day of the year to close their stores so that people could be outside and enjoying life with their families. So it's this idea that we like to hear from people to see who they think are the best and worst in accountability.
I really do see it as a tool in a way, and I can understand why that might give you pause, but it certainly gives us an opportunity to reflect on what's working, what's not, some great teachable moments there that other companies and leaders may emulate or not, right?
You're right. You're right about that, and it is, and the reason that we did it is to provide those models of this is what great looks like, and this is what lousy looks like. So Wells Fargo is in there as another example of one of the worst examples of accountability. So in that respect, yeah, you are right. It's a tool because it gives us some insight into how we want to model our own leadership style.
So let's take a deeper dive. What are some of the biggest problems, and what do you do about it at that point?
Well, I think the biggest problem, and I do a lot of workshops with CEOs, and I always ask the leaders to write down a problem they're having. And the first, I said, let me just ask you some questions about that. The very first question that I ask is, what is your role in this? And so you have to stop and think that if there is an accountability problem or an underperformance issue or commitments are being broken or however you want to frame that, you have to ask yourself first, what am I doing to ignore that or enable that? And then the second question is, well, does the person whose name you just wrote down on that list, do they know that they're in the penalty box with you? And so I think it all comes from recognizing that this is a problem, having the authenticity to talk about it as a problem. Again, not not attacking the person, but attacking the issue and using it as a coaching moment.
I think that's so important. It's really easy to fill out a survey and not be accountable yourself, to put your name to it. So this is all about failing forward and learning and having those recovery moments. Tell us a little bit more about how we can take advantage of the survey on your website.
Well, you can go to the site. It's bustin.com, B as in boy, USTIN.com, and there's a link right on the homepage. There are 10 20-second videos and little brief descriptions of each of the bests and the worst candidates. There's 5 best, 5 worst, and you can cast your votes. We're going to be wrapping that up soon, and we'll look forward to people voting.
Fantastic. So again, Greg, your book is Accountability, the Key to Driving a High-Performance Culture. Tell us how we can buy your book and follow you online, because you've got so many great resources that you put out into the world.
Well, thanks, Caroline. The book is available through McGraw-Hill on Amazon, and so you can buy it online or wherever, as they say, fine books are sold. There are a ton of free tools that are available on my website that I have created over the years that I'm happy to share with people, and that site again is bustin.com, BUSTIN.com.
Greg, as we wrap, I would love to get your take. My impression is that your resources are really applicable to leaders of all levels. We've got emerging leaders that are listening and those who are more seasoned. What do you say to that?
You're exactly right, Caroline. When I wrote the book, I surveyed and spoke with leaders and their teams at some of the most admired companies in the world, big brands like Marriott and Sony and Nucor Steel. And I also spoke with a couple of dozen leaders and their teams at companies that are anywhere from $50 million to $500 million. So small and mid-sized markets. And what I found is that cultures where accountability matters, where there is a high performance culture, that type of culture transcends the age of the company, the age of the leader, the industry, the geography, the size of the company, all of that. So this is applicable for whether you're running a startup or a team or a department, a nonprofit, or an entire enterprise for that matter.
Awesome. Greg Bustin, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and expertise. I truly value what you're putting out into the world. I know others do as well. I wish you continued success, and I hope our paths cross again sometime soon.
Thank you, Caroline. I appreciate you inviting me.
Thanks, Greg. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in to Your Working Life, where my goal is to help you design your career destiny so it doesn't happen by default. My show is now available on iTunes, YouTube, Podbean, and Stitcher. Be sure to subscribe so you get new shows every week. And hey, leave a comment about what's important to you in the career world, and I'll consider your idea for a future show. I'm Caroline Dowd-Higgins. Thanks for listening.